All right, we're ready to go.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. We do have some more individuals that have registered for this workshop and should be joining us, so hopefully we can go from there. My name is Tina Bartholomew. I'm the school liaison for the County Library in Salt Lake, and we also have with us today librarians from the City Library, which is a separate library system, and also a representative from UELMA, which is the Utah School Librarians Association. We're going to start with some introductions, but first, just look at your screen. You're in the right place if you are here for your school in collaboration with libraries. And now that I know my screen share is working, we can jump straight to the introductions. As I said, my name is Tina Bartholomew. I'm the school liaison. This is our 4th year holding this event. We've changed the name a few times, but we've been small but mighty for a few years now. And this will be the first time that we're recording the event, hoping to share it out with those teachers who are in other meetings right now, getting their classrooms ready to start school on Monday in our area. And we'll go ahead and Kimberly, will you go first? And then we will go to Stephanie and Deanna.
I'm Kimberly Ernie. I'm the UELMA board member representative for charter schools. I currently work at Ascent Academies as the network librarian, so I oversee 4 different libraries throughout the state.
Thank you so much for being here, Kimberly. Stephanie?
Hi, I'm Stephanie Costa. I'm the Teen Services and Family Engagement Coordinator at the City Library, and I work with all of the teen librarians at our different branches across the system.
And I'm Deanna Romrell. I'm the Children's Services Coordinator for the Salt Lake City Public Library and work with the children's librarians across the system.
Yeah. Okay. So before we get started, we still have a few minutes. I was hoping that we could talk about, well, tell you what, I will share my slides and we'll talk about the agenda today. That's what we'll do. So this will be today's agenda. We'll be first hearing a presentation from our Salt Lake City librarians about specific services and things that are specific for educators and for students. That'll be followed by a presentation that I will provide about the Salt Lake County Library. And then we have a great presentation lined up using a diversity lens to evaluate book titles for classroom use. I got a preview of those slides. It's a fabulous presentation. And then the last 30 minutes is where we're going to take this training and change it from a presentation to a workshop. And we will have some small group discussions and talk about collaboration opportunities and school needs. So that is our agenda today. And if we are ready to go ahead and switch presenters to, was it Stephanie or Deanna? Stephanie. Okay, switch presenters to Stephanie so she can share her screen.
All right, Stephanie and I will go ahead then. We're going to start out by talking about partnerships. These are things that we do with our local schools, mostly the Salt Lake City School District. So if you aren't in our area, you can check with your local library to see what they all have to offer.
Anna, do you want the slides being shared now? I don't see the slides being shared.
No, we don't have any slides to share yet.
All right, thank you.
We'll just talk for a few minutes about our partnerships and then we'll start sharing. So one of the big partnerships that we have with our school district is library cards. So students who enroll in the Salt Lake City School District automatically have access to the city library through a student library card. And parents have the option to opt out, but all students have that access, which is really exciting that they can use the library. And another thing that our librarians love to do is go to libraries and do Ozbots, which is a great STEM-based program. They go in and share some science ideas with kids and get them excited about those types of things. We also have partnered with our schools on Read for the Record. This is a national program that's sponsored by Jumpstart each year. This year it's on October 28th. And our librarians will go into the schools and read that book that is being read across the entire nation on that day with the kids. And that's been very popular, and it's fun to be part of something bigger than just our area. We also, of course, I'm sure like all libraries, are involved with literacy nights and back to school nights. We do a variety of things at those events. We often have a table with information. We've done bilingual story times at those events. We have often brought books that kids can keep. So we do book donations. We've done Lego challenges for kids and parents at those events. One of our deepest partnerships with the Salt Lake City School District is our pre-K outreaches that we do. So we have a partnership where with this school district for their pre-K classrooms, where our librarians, at least in non-pandemic times, go to the pre-K class once a month. They present a story time. And then throughout the school year, we have a variety of things that we also share with the kids. We have a brochure, we call it the Start Smart brochure. And it is something that kids can take home to their parents. It gives them tips about reading with their child, ways to make their child excited about reading and language, and also includes some great book recommendations. We also bring bags of books to the pre-K class each month that we come, and we rotate those monthly so that the kids are getting fresh books in their classroom each month. We also sign all of the kids up for our 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program, which allows them to read books and earn prizes with the library. And then each child in the pre-K classroom is given a book of their own that they get to keep. During the pandemic, we've had to adjust that a little bit. So we still can bring those items to the classrooms, but instead of doing the story times monthly in the classrooms, we offer Zoom story times to the classrooms. And actually, those have gone over really well with our teachers and with the kids. So we've enjoyed doing that. So Stephanie is going to talk about our partnerships with the older kids.
Yeah. So we do a lot of similar things with our middle and high schoolers. Each of our teen librarians is paired with a local middle school and high school, and so they reach out to those librarians and language arts teachers and try to find out what we can support and how we can connect the city library to the school. So we are happy to come out and do college and career nights and back to school nights, like Deanna was saying. We can do just like library information, but we also can have activities at our tables and things like that. Just we can tailor that to whatever the event is. We also have had fun doing some lunchtime book clubs at our middle schools. So we have had a Battle of the Books club at Northwest Middle School and another lunchtime book club at Bryant Middle School. And those have been lots of fun. And we sometimes will bring like a DIY craft or something that we'll do while we chat, and it kind of lures in some of those reluctant readers to hang out with us. What's great about those programs is that it gives us some continuity between the school interaction and the public library. So when students do get a chance to finally come to the public library, they see a familiar face there and they know they have a friend and someone that they can ask questions to. We also, when we work directly with classroom teachers, we will sometimes tailor special presentations. So we've done Ben Books Week presentations, or we'll do research presentations where we'll walk students through our databases and show them how to search for specific topics that their class might be working on. And And then we also offer an ACT study sessions program that is in partnership with the Benyon Center at the University of Utah. And their college student tutors come into our branches and teach how to take the ACT test. They do study practice tests, and they also get a free book. Students get a free book if they attend at least 2 of those sessions. So that happens at 2 of our branches, but right now we're just offering it virtually. Still being attended virtually, which is great. So now I'm going to share my screen and show you some of our online databases that students and teachers can access through our website. In just a moment. Can I get a verbal confirmation that everyone
I can
see
see it.
Thank you. All right, so this is our city library website, and it's just slcpl.org. So to find our digital library, you just go to Explore and then Digital Library. And this is where we have links to all of our databases and online resources. And we have so many of them that they're arranged by topic, and then you can expand each of these sections out into a list of resources. So the first one I'll show you is Creative Bug, which is a fun art-based resource where, look, welcome back, Stephanie, where you can see video classes on a variety of topics. And there's also a section for kids. Let's see, my viewfinder for the where the workshop is blocking it, but you can see there are specific classes geared towards kids or different age groups. Each course has video tutorials, written instructions, supply lists, and there's an interactive feature where you can ask questions and get help from other people who have done these classes. So that's a fun resource for creative activities, after school programs, all kinds of things. Another one I'll show you is our Learning Express database, which is in the test prep and skill building area. These are all alphabetical, so you just scroll down to the L's. And Learning Express has a lot of school resources, and it's not just for students in elementary, middle, and high school. There's also resources for parents, and when students are ready for entering the workforce, there's a lot of resources there for resumes and looking at careers and things. But in the school center, you'll find resources for elementary, middle, and high school students. And students can practice different subjects. They can take tests. There are ebooks they can download or just read through here. And if they create an account, they don't have to, but if they create an account, they can save the things that they're working on. I often share the College Prep Center with people because students can also take practice ACT, AP, SAT tests all right in here. And again, if they create an account, they can save those practice scores. They can do timed tests. They also get feedback on what parts of the test they need to work on and which areas they're doing well. The last resource I'll show you is Help Now, which is in the homework help section. And it is a free online tutoring service. There's a lot more to it besides just tutoring, but there are live online tutors available every day from 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. And in a variety of subjects, you can see math, science, reading, social studies, test prep. They also have tutors that speak Spanish, and there's a writing lab so students can upload essays and get feedback, not through a live tutor, but just get like an email with tips and ideas for how to improve their work. So that one is really great. There are also wonderful resources in there for students who maybe need to meet with each other to work on a project. They can get a room inside of this resource to meet with their classmates.
All right, I will share just a few of our resources as well. Under books and writers, we have our Beanstack database, I guess is the right word for that. But it's really a great place for families can register. I've had teachers register, and you can get recommendations that are specifically geared toward your child, or in the case of a teacher, the students in your classroom. Those recommendations are based on their answers to certain questions, so including their age and their interests. And so I love that about Beanstack. Beanstack is also a great place to track reading. And for the city library, we have our year-round reading programs available through Beanstack. So teachers, parents can either pick those booklets up at the library and have a paper tracker, or they can track the reading through Beanstack. So we have a 1,000 books before kindergarten program. We have 200 books before fourth and 100 books before graduation, all in here. And kids can track their reading and earn prizes along the way. And at the end of each of those programs, they can earn a free book for completing the program. So Beanstack is a nice resource for families to get involved in reading and to get recommendations. Also wanted to share a World Book. I think it's a pretty well-known resource, but I really like the virtual version that we have here. So World Book Online is a great resource for all different ages of kids, from pre-K clear up through high school and beyond. So they have content for those who are going to university, as well as adults who are just interested in lifelong learning. And it's well organized. You'll see that there's categories there. We'll go into the kids category, grades K+. I like that this is organized in a way that's very accessible to even younger children. They can see the images at the bottom. They can explore videos. They can find activities and games. There's even science projects to explore. So if they're looking for ideas for that science fair or assignments at school, it's a great resource, just filled with videos and information, photographs, all kinds of different media. And so that's a great resource for teachers and for students. Finally, we'll go back out and look at another resource that I love for reading, which is Tumble Books. So we'll scroll down here. Tumble Books is towards the bottom there. And this is a great resource, particularly for kids who are just learning to read. They have read-along stories. You'll see across the top the storybooks and read-alongs both offer the option for kids to hear a story and see the words at the same time. So it'll highlight the words as they're being read, which is really great for beginning readers. They have a lot of ebooks. They're starting to get some even for the older kids. So particularly third, fourth grade is starting to show up in their content, and a few things for even older, but mostly for that younger crowd. So Tumble Books is great for those beginning readers who are looking for books that they can hear and see. So I love that one. And a final resource we're going to talk about is our BiblioBoard platform, which can also be found under our databases. And BiblioBoard is a place where we can share, the library can share all kinds of collections and content with our community. So we have several modules, we call them, for the different ages. Some are for adults, and then we have kids and tweens and teen. We'll go into the kids and tweens for a minute here. We have all kinds of collections in here. I'll just point out a couple. First at the top, there's the Kids Creative Corner, which is filled with crafts that have been put together by city librarians, as well as our refrigerator art is artwork that's been submitted by kids in our community. And that's really fun to see. Yeah, great. Let's click on that one so you can see some of the fun artwork submitted. And so we've actually had quite a few teachers reach out to us and tell us that they use the Kids Creative Corner, particularly the crafts that have been created by the librarians in the Kids Creative Corner crafts collection. They've used that with their classroom. So I have some fun pictures of some of our Head Start classrooms that we work with doing these crafts. Another collection I'd like to point out in BiblioBoard for the kids is our Kids and Tweens Read. So these are book reviews by librarians for kids and also book reviews by kids for kids. So the ones by librarians are organized according to the type of book that is being reviewed. And you can see our collection of graphic novels. So the librarians just review the books and kids get a chance to get a sense of what the books are about. And so that's another fun collection. We also, for the younger kids, we have, and we don't need to go into it, but we have a storytime collection on BiblioBoard. So families can access story times, but even when they can't come to the library for story time, whether it's because we're shut down for a pandemic or if it's because their schedules won't allow them to attend story time when it's being held. And I think Stephanie is going to share a little bit about the BiblioBoard content we have for teens.
Yeah, so we don't have as much as the kids and tweens section has, but we have some cool stuff too. So we also ask teens to share their artwork, and we have some fun collections in here. Paintings, photography, writing, all kinds of great stuff. And then we have a DIY corner, which is basically our crafts for teens area. And some of the work in there is created by librarians and some is created by teens. We have a wonderful teen volunteer program called Teen Squad. And when we shut down last year, we took it all online. And that meant that instead of teen volunteers helping sign up people for summer reading, they created projects that could be shared with the community. So we have this wonderful Teen Squad collection where we've posted the projects that the teens have made. So there's everything from what to read next flowcharts to how to make a Viking flatbread and great book recommendations, the things they loved, zines about the pandemic and author spotlights of their favorite authors. It's been really fun to see what they've created. And we have a new collection for this year's volunteers as well. And it's even more impressive, but we're still getting projects coming in. So that's one fun thing that we have here. And then we also have our Teen Reads, which is video recommendations by our librarians. And we have a section of things that teens have made as well. We love to share the things that our community members have made. So it's a really great place to share, and we can change it frequently. So I think the last thing, do we have any more time? We can talk a little bit about our blogs. Let me get all
Yeah,
of
go
them
ahead.
to our website. So also last year during the pandemic, we started 2 blogs, one for teens and their families and one for kids and their families. I'll quickly show you the teens one and then Deanna can walk you through the kids blog. So to get to our blog, you can just go to For You and Teens. And then there's a link here for City Library Teens. And we put up different articles every week. We highlight our volunteers. We highlight events that are going on at the library for teens. We do a fun little weekly poll asking for random questions about what they like. We have a little About Us page where people can find out about our librarians and where we work and what we look like, so they kind of know what they're getting into when they come visit us at the library. Things that we like. They can come talk to us about manga or whatever it is that we are big fans of. Again, we have a Teen Squad page here. This is an events page where we have some of our summer activities and our recurring weekly programs. Everything right now is virtual. So there are usually links or like a button where someone can click and just join right into the event. And then and read all about what we've been doing at the library for teens since last June, which is pretty great to have this archive. There's also a contact page here, so if anyone has a question for our teen librarians, wants to get right to a teen librarian, this is a great way to reach out to us.
All right, and we also have a blog for kids. Get to it in a similar way. Go to the kids page on our website, and then there is a link to our City Library Kids blog. This is not a traditional blog. We don't, unlike the teens, we don't do a weekly or monthly blog post, but there is all kinds of content here for kids and families. There's a couple of polls scattered throughout to encourage kids to keep coming back, usually with quirky questions. You can see our current one. If you could have any fictional animal as a pet, what would you choose? Last week, it turns out that most of our viewers liked pineapple on their pizza. So just fun things like that. If we go back up to the top, we'll see that there's a variety of things. We also have an events page. We don't need to go into that one, but it does have our summer events on it right now. We have our preschool page, which we can click on that one, Stephanie. That one includes links to YouTube links to some story times, and then includes a link to our story times that are on BiblioBoard that we showed you earlier. That has a larger collection. All of those rotate so that they're not up for too long, just for 1 week on the YouTube page. We also have a book section that includes some book reviews with links to, again, to BiblioBoard if they want to see more book reviews. Also has a lot of book recommendations there and links to our book list, which we do lots of book lists. I also love and just want to point out that we do have a page that's all in Spanish. So we're very lucky to have 2 of our librarians who are fluent and native Spanish speakers, and they keep this part of our page updated for us. So we have story times that are bilingual or in Spanish, and almost all of the things that are accessible on the blog in English can be found here in Spanish. And finally, I just wanted to point out that, like the teen blog, we also have a About Us page. To get to know the librarians. We have little sketches of our librarians, and it's just a fun little page that kids can get to know their local librarian a little bit. So they, again, know what to expect, like Stephanie said, when they're coming to visit the library.
All right. Thank you for listening.
That was fabulous. Thank you, Stephanie and Deanna. I am very jealous of the relationship that the city library has with their public school district, the Salt Lake City School District. The opportunity to give cards to that many children is absolutely fabulous. We don't have that same level of access at the county library. I've actually been revisiting a partnership discussion just this year, but we're still trying to work out the details of how we would make that work. But we do have some resources that we've created that can also help students get cards. We're proud of that. So what we're going to do now is switch to my presentation on the county library services. So Heather, if you will make me the presenter, thank you. And if you'll give me just a moment, I need to, if I do this in the wrong order, it doesn't work. So I have to do it this way. Thank you for your patience. Okay. So the resources that I will be talking about are from the county library in Salt Lake. And as the school liaison, my primary role is to work with collaborations and outreach events that are going to be happening at multiple schools or on a district-wide level. I also provide a lot of training to educators. And we have multiple branches in our library system. So if you're going to be doing a back to school night or a literacy assembly, we have you work directly with the youth services librarians at their local branch so that the kids who see a librarian at their school see that same librarian when they visit the library, and they get really excited. They say, oh, you were at my school. So we try to keep those local connections along with more broader projects that I handle. Today's workshop comes with a certificate of attendance. The link is on the slide here. We tried to make a link that would be easy for you to type in on your device. So it is an HTTPS, so it is secure. www.surveymonkey.com /r/school_library_collaboration. I will be checking this survey results for the next 2 months. And anyone who has attended this presentation or who watches the recording and submits a request for a certificate of attendance will receive one. There's also a few questions about, and really few questions, just like guess how many kids in your school have a library card. Would you be interested in book talks? A little checkbox. So you could probably get that survey filled out in probably 5 minutes. If you watch the recording after September of 2021, you'll need to contact me either by email or phone call and let me know that you filled out the survey and I can get your certificate of attendance to you. So this is a map of the area that is covered by Salt Lake County libraries, where all of the little book icons that are south of that gray line, those are county libraries. North of that line are the city libraries. They've got several branches as well, and that's where the city school district is. So I work with all of the public schools that are south of the I-80/201 road line there. And then there's a little area that's the Murray Library District that's kind of just right in the middle. I also will work with any private or charter schools that are anywhere in Salt Lake County because we know that students attending those schools live everywhere in the county. And so the city and the county library, we work together to fill the needs at those schools. In an ideal world, this is what our meeting would look like. We would be sitting in a big event center, we'd be having presentations, and I would be serving you this buffet breakfast or buffet lunch, and you would be walking home from this meeting with bundles and bundles of bookmarks and book lists and flyers for events and instructions for digital materials. But of course, we're not in an ideal world, but there are some benefits to meeting this way. We've avoided all the traffic to drive to a location. You can have your personally selected snack sitting at the desk next to you. And this presentation will be available widely through the recording afterwards. In a slightly less ideal world, we would still be meeting in person. You can see this photo, we've all got our masks on there, and we're having some small discussions. This is the ideal for collaboration. Without knowing about each other, we cannot collaborate. So that's why the last part of this session is planned to be a discussion. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to, we'll stop the recording so that everyone will turn on their cameras. And what we're going to do is talk about what roadblocks you're hitting. What things are you celebrating in your schools? What are you excited about? And we'll start having those discussions today for the workshop portion of today's presentation. So in 2020, in July, in the School Library Journal, there was a blog article entitled "Wake Up Libraries, Curbside Pickup is Not the Answer, Reimagining Libraries." And I have to say that I don't totally agree with this article. Last year, when one of my kids was coughing and we had to wait 3 to 5 days to find out what the test results were going to be, curbside was my salvation at that point. But the point of this article is that we can't just reimagine our current services. We need to be meeting the evolving needs of our community where they are right now. And one of the 7 solutions that this article puts forth in identifying what our community's needs are is through cooperation and collaboration within your community. And in our situation, we're talking about collaboration between schools and libraries. And it's not just collaborating, because we collaborate now, I think, but it's making a strategic effort to plan together. Before I became a community engagement librarian, I was a youth services librarian in a branch doing story times and after-school programming. And one of the things that I really disliked was the word networking. I thought, I'm an introvert, I don't network. And I felt that way because I didn't understand what networking really is. Networking is knowing who knows things. So, and as an information professional and as a librarian, I haven't met anyone in that field who doesn't love to just know things. So all of us in our community, we need to know who those members of our community are. So we need to know who the people in the schools are that want to work with libraries, and the people in the schools need to know who we are so that they can work with us. And I love this quote that's in the article by Juan Rubio. I really like the idea about knowing your partners rather than making them learn about you. So when we have a one-way conversation, all we can do is tell you about ourselves. But if we can initiate a two-way conversation, then we have the opportunity to learn about each other so that I can learn about you and what you need in your schools. I found this chart just doing some general browsing, and it's levels of collaboration between community organizations. It's created by Prevention Solutions at EDC, and they are an organization that provides training for behavioral health professionals. So specifically agencies that are working to address substance abuse and related problems. And they have shared this chart on their website. I was so happy that they were willing to share that with us. And looking at this chart, they have levels of collaboration. So the first level is networking, where partners share information and talk with one another for their mutual benefit. The second level is cooperation, where partners are supporting each other's activities, but there's no formal agreement in place. And I think many of the activities that currently happen between schools and libraries hit these two benchmarks. Summer reading would be an example in our library where we share flyers with the schools, inviting all of the students while the schools are closed for the summer to come and participate in summer reading. The next level up is coordination. And this is where partners are engaged in mutual projects and initiatives, and they're modifying their own activities to benefit the whole. So some of the activities that I have done with my schools fit into that coordination. So for example, we were talking about summer reading. When we come into the school and do a presentation on summer reading, when we do book talks and we're getting people really hyped up to come and sign up for summer reading. I think that would be more of a coordinated event, whereas what we were talking about before was just cooperation. And then the final stage on this chart is full collaboration, which is with a formal agreement in place, partners are working towards developing enhanced capacity. And I think the city library, that's the level they've reached with their cards for library students that I'm so jealous of. This chart does have a second page. We're not going to talk about that today, and I've provided the link to the chart so that you can get to that, but we won't look at that today. So now I'd like to talk about why you should be working with a librarian. And I have some examples of ways that educators could benefit and have enhanced activities if they're working with a librarian and the resources those librarians have available. And the three examples that I want to share are, we're going to talk about 4th grade Utah County reports. We're going to talk about Battle of the Books, and we're going to talk about unique resources that are only available in specific locations. So the first thing I want to talk about, and I've shared this example in previous years, so my apologies if you have heard this before, is the 4th grade county report. In Utah, all 4th graders study the history of Utah, and it's not unusual for students in the 4th grade to be showing up in my library branches saying, I am doing a report on, say, Tooele County, and I need to have a book, a website, and there's one more, an article. And recently, with the advance in technology now catching up with homework, they often have to have 2 more items, which is an image and 1 additional media resource. So they have to have these 5 resources. The problem with this assignment is publishers do not write books on Utah counties. They don't write books on any counties in the United States. You can find lots and lots of books on Utah, but not on specific little local areas like a county. And when these 4th graders come in, or the parents come in, they say, I want a book on Tooele County, and they will not accept it when we tell them they don't exist. And the truth is that they do exist, but there's only one. And it's this 400-page thing that was written by the Daughters of the Utah Pioneers. It was published in the 1990s, and it's actually not available on the shelves anymore. But if that student really wants that access, the last resource on this webpage is the ebook copies of that collection. And there's one for each of the counties in Utah. The other thing is that websites and resources about Utah counties do not exist in the giant databases. So the Gale databases or the EBSCO databases do not have Utah County information. Wikipedia has information. And so what our education agencies here in Utah have done is they've created websites for this report. The newest website that's available is from the Utah State Library, Utah's online library, not the K through 12 version, but just the Utah State Library version. And they have just updated their website. So that's the first one on this list. Next is the K through 12, Utah's online library version, which is sponsored by UEN. And then Utah Division of State History has a website that has not been updated as much as the other 2 websites. And knowing this information will have a 4th grade teacher change their assignment. When they know what types of information are available for this, I have seen teachers change the assignment criteria to match what actually exists. So that's one instance in which a librarian working with you is a benefit for educators. The next thing that I want to share here, this is the Canyon School District Book Blitz list. So these are the books that are going to be read by the middle school students. And this is kind of their equivalent of Battle of the Books. They do their own program, not the national program, which has the trademark of Battle of the Books. And when the school tells me, so these programs usually start in August at the same time that school starts. And if the school district librarians are able to tell me what books they're going to be using, usually I need to know around May. I put the list out and all of my library branches purchase additional copies of the books that we know are going to be in high demand because of these programs. And that's, I think, a very important collaboration. If your school is going to be doing anything that has multiple students, especially if it's something more than one class is doing, make sure you tell us 3 or 4 months in advance, and we can support those programs by providing books for those students to read. So I got a phone call last year, and it was one of my local elementary library assistants. And she said, the kids are telling me they can't read the books on our book blitz list because there's already 40 holds on it. And so I'm like, okay, I'll look into that. And sure enough, Frindle had 40 holds on the title. And then I looked at how many copies we have. We have 42 paper copies, 3 ebook copies, 3 books on CD, and 3 e-audio books of Frindle. And I emailed her back and I said, your student's absolutely right. They are number 40 on the waiting list, but we have 46 copies. And that means that even though the student's number 40 on the list, within the next 3 weeks, they will get a copy. And this was still in August. And so they had several weeks still to read the book before the end of the program. So collaborations can be very important. This might look familiar to you. I sure hope it does. This is the UEN version of Utah's online library, the K through 12 version. And they have some unique resources that you won't find at the city library or at the county library. And I've kind of highlighted those on this page. They have culturegrams, really, really great for country reports. They have a Sounds Abound library, which is copyright-free music that students can use for podcasts or video editing. They have Noodle Tools, which is a really great social, emotional, and physical activity resource for elementary. And then they have the Gale Elementary encyclopedias, which I don't have at my library. I do have World Book, just like the city library does, but we don't have the Gale Elementary. So that they have just recently updated their password. They do that every August 2nd. So if you need that password, make sure that you have gotten it from your local school administrators, or we can get it to you at the library. But that should look familiar to you, but they don't have everything. If you were listening to the city library presentation, they have a lot of resources that are not available on Utah's online library. One of those was the BrainFuse Help Now, which is something I also have available. You'll see that circled here on my list. This is the homework help page from the county library. Some other unique resources that we have available. We have Miss Humblebee's Academy, which is a complete preschool curriculum that is partially virtual, so online activities, and partially lessons that the parents can print out, or instructions on how to do different activities and crafts. And it's a full preschool curriculum that is available. We have Tumble books, just like the city library does, and we've recently added the Tumble Math to that collection. And one of the great things about the Tumble Math is the ebooks in that area and on Tumble books in general are always available. You could have an entire class reading the same book at the same time. And the Tumble Math collection specifically allows a student to read about a subject such as addition, multiplication, or percentages, and then it has quizzes already created right there in the same page as the books. We also have resources, and the City Library has many of these as well, for continuing education credits for teachers. So we have access to Universal Class is one of our resources for that. And then we also have the LinkedIn Learning. The other thing that you will not find on Utah's online library, K through 12, are fiction ebook collections. So you can access these at the city library or at the county library. We have Tumble books. And I am so excited about our relationship with Sora. So Sora is the Overdrive app that allows students to access both their school ebook collection if that school is using Overdrive, and also allows them to access the public library's collection of ebooks. Many schools don't want to put the Libby app on their school devices because it has the full collection of ebooks from the public library. It has all the romance covers and all the nonfiction ebook titles that we have available. But the Sora app only shows the children or the teen collection, depending on what the settings are set up by the school. And we've really ramped up our relationship with Overdrive this year using the Sora app. We are actively supporting this service. One of the things that we were able to enable last year is that a school that is a Sora school their students can add the public library to their app and check out using their student numbers, just like they check out the school ebooks. And that's a collaboration I'm just so proud of and so happy about, that these children are being given a bigger freedom of choice, even when schools are being during a temporary shutdown or a temporary time where they're going to be doing school from home for a few weeks. They have full access to the ebooks, both that their school offers and that the public library offers, and they can check them out with their student number. Now, we do still have Libby that has the full access to all of our digital materials. And the City Library, I already demonstrated Tumblebooks Library for you. What I love about the Tumblebooks Library is if you access the Tumblebook link on our website, you don't have to type in a library card number to access this resource. So that's one of the really great things. You could have an entire class reading Tumblebooks at the same time. One of the new things that we've been building up at the county library is our library of things. We recently added Chromebooks and hotspots to our items that can be checked out. Now, these items can only be checked out by an adult card, but we think that this is a really good thing for schools to know about, because often I had the opportunity, my kids go to the Granite School District, and I had the opportunity to read their acceptable use statement that all of the students have to sign. And one of the things that they agree to is that they are the only one who's going to use the devices that are being checked out to the student, which is completely reasonable. It's school resources. That's something I would expect. But often you have these parents who want to also access the internet. Maybe they're job hunting. Maybe if they had access to the internet, that student could be getting additional assistance in their home environment. And so we offer Chromebook and hotspot checkout at the library, and schools should be able to share that information with their parents when issues come up with who's using the kid's Chromebook at home. We also offer scanning for free. So if you have a student who needs to scan something to submit it for an assignment, we have a pretty good sized scan bed. And as long as they're scanning the email, it's free. We also offer print from anywhere. You can upload a document to our website or to an app that you can put on your phone, and printing is 10 cents a page. And that is just for letter size printing. We don't offer a larger size. We have new create spaces in our libraries. Now, each library is a little bit different because some of them are adapting spaces. Our two newest libraries that will be opening in the winter/spring of 2022 will be built with create spaces in mind. And so they will have all of these resources available. In our older branches, older being, less than a year old, they will probably only have 2 or 3 of these options at that branch. But most recently, we did share out that the Kearns, Magna, and Holiday branches have all of the equipment that you would need to create your own podcast. And then some of the branches also have visual recording studios as well. So if you're a teacher who's creating resources for a class, we've got the laser cutters, the vinyl cutters, all sorts of equipment that you'd be able to use to prepare materials for your classroom. For online learning, homework help is also available from our library, just like it is the city library. And we recently added the audio function. And so it used to be that you could draw on the whiteboard and share assignments and that way, and also through the chat, but we've now enabled audio. And so the tutor and the student, if both of their devices have microphones and speakers, are able to work together in a fully digital immersive environment, at least as far as like Chromebooks and like that will be able to reach. Something that every teacher should know about if they are interested in literacy connections to their curriculum is Novelist. And hopefully you've heard of that before. It's a database that helps you find fiction materials. And they also offer a lot of curriculum support for different subjects. And I've already told you about the LinkedIn Learning. We have classes specifically for educators. And when you complete those classes, there are certificates available for you to print. LinkedIn Learning is a at your own pace service. Universal Class has actual live tutors. And so you actually are submitting your assignments. Sometimes that matters depending on what your professional development requirements are. Some of them require classes that have teachers and some of them accept the just standalone learning. And there's Universal Class, as I mentioned before. So collaborations with your local library. We'll be doing some online field trips in just 2 weeks. We've already got those arranged for some 7th and 8th grade English classes. I've already talked about collaboration with the summer reading program. We also offer themed book talks. So a librarian can come in and speak to your students in the library, or we can send a video recording of those book talks. Some elementary schools do Community Helper Week, and that's always a great time to bring in a librarian. And then we do have some other reading incentive programs that we're adding right now. Beehive is a really big deal here in Utah. At the public libraries, we purchase additional copies of the titles that are selected as Beehive nominees. And if you would like to run a Beehive program in your school, just contact one of my library branches. We are willing to share all of our resources that we use for our program. So if you want book lists, if you want the little stamp records, if you would like any of these flyers, all you have to do is request them. We will print them off and send them to you. We do have limitations on the number of printings that we can do. So we might not be able to give you like 4,000 book challenge records, but we could certainly share the PDFs with you and you could print them. Another collaboration that we do at this county library is called the Level Up Program for 3rd graders. We have a librarian visit the third graders either during their library time or in their classroom, and invite the third graders to come to the branch and complete some missions to either become a library wizard, a library detective, or a library astronaut, depending on the year. We rotate the 3 themes. And we always have really great prize for this program for the third graders that manage to complete all 3 of their secret missions in the library. We do have online escape rooms and scavenger hunts that are available. This slide needs to be updated a little. We now have a, under the events page, they now have their own web page. So you don't have to search through the calendar anymore. They now have their own site. And the city librarians talked about Beanstack. The county library has added that resource as well. And as part of that, along with summer reading, we are now offering winter reading. So the winter reading program will be happening in January. If you'd like to sign up an entire class on Beanstack, we can do that. Just contact one of your local librarians and we can get the whole class signed up. When we do a group sign up like that, the adult is able to see all of the children's progress when they sign up for a group account. And those activities to complete winter reading, it's modeled after our summer reading program. And so every day that you read, learn, create, play, or connect will help you earn a book of your own, is the prize for that program. We do have programs that I wish we had more collaboration with the schools on. One of the things that we're working on right now is our ToshaCon. This is an annual teen-only convention, anime convention. And our contests are open right now and will be through August 31st. So we're currently accepting applications for our cosplay contest, our anime music videos contest, our art contest, and we are also looking for teens who'd be willing to do a teen-led panel on one of their favorite animes, or who want to be a vendor and sell their materials that they've created at this convention. So this is something we do every year. And one of the problems, of course, is that this program the contests happen during the summer, but our rules for these contests don't change very much from year to year. Sometimes we'll add another rule if something has come up, but usually they're pretty much identical. And so students could be working on these types of projects during the school year and then submit them during the summer when school lets out. A lot of our resources do require a library card. And as I said before, we don't have quite the relationship that the city library does, but we can provide several options to your students. One of them is an e-card. An e-card is available to any age. You complete the online card application. So the student does have to release certain information such as their address and birth date, their full legal name. And then all you have to do is call customer service and they will provide you with a library card number. That library card will allow you to access all of our digital materials. Now, if you want to start using materials that are from the library physically, we have just our usual children's card or our usual adult card, but we also offer what's called the student card. This is kind of our equivalent to the relationship that you might have with a school district in person. And any student who's 17 and under can get a student card. This does not require parents' identification to be shown. We do still need the address and the birth date and the full legal name. But this card never has any late fees. There are no fees charged to a student card. You can check out 3 items at a time. You get full access to all of our digital resources and free access to our computers. Having no late fees is a big deal. So these cards are really wonderful. Also, if you have teachers in your school who might live in, say, Utah County or one of the other surrounding counties, if they are teaching students who are from Salt Lake County, we want those teachers to be using our materials in the classroom so they can show the kids how to be lifelong learners. And so we will waive the out-of-county library fee for any teacher who is teaching Salt Lake County students. So all you have to do is fill out the application, have them show their school ID, and this does have to be renewed annually. Okay, so are there any questions about anything that I've shared? There usually aren't at this point because you're completely tuned out because I've been droning on for half an hour. But if there are, feel free to speak up or put them in the chat. Here is that link again to receive a certificate of attendance for today's program. And I will be, let me in the chat right now. I can share, I've created a PDF of these slides and the links have been made live in this PDF. So I will put that link in the chat. And you can access the slides that I just shared along with those live links. Great. Here is my contact information. I'm really hoping that we'll have a chance to collaborate. Email is usually the best way to reach me, but I welcome phone calls to my cell number. I'm not on Twitter that much. I do have it, but it's probably not worthwhile following me. I don't post, but that is also available. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and we will get ready for our really great presentation on diverse books. Okay, so I have stopped sharing, Heather. If you will make Nissa a presenter, please.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for your time today. I'm excited to be here. I'm Nissa Flagg. I'm a library program manager with the Salt Lake County Library, and in my position, we talk a lot about diversity and inclusion, equity and access as how it comes to programming, and so I'm super excited today to talk to you about diversity lens to use in the classroom and when selecting books. So I'm going to go ahead and hopefully this works. All right, so hold on, I've got to pull up that. Okay, can I get some thumbs up or somebody letting me know that you can see the PowerPoint and it all looks good?
It looks good.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so you know, as we talk about diversity, it is so such a broad topic that I couldn't really come in and be like, here is a list of books that you should use in the classroom, or when you recommend, or when you're putting together a book list. It's too big and too broad to do that in. So what I'm talking about instead today is how to look at those books that you recommend and put on lists and teach even, and how you can look at those through a lens of diversity. So if you want to put in the chat, or if you just want to kind of think to yourself about, you know, let's first start with what diversity is. Let's get kind of a definition going. So if you kind of can think about like what diversity is, what it means to talk about diverse books, and again, you can put it in the chat or just kind of think about it yourself. One thing when we talk about diversity, a lot of us go race. Like if it has somebody in it who's not white, then we're talking about a diverse book. And that's true. I'm not contradicting that. But diversity is a lot bigger than that. So while race is one piece of it, there are other things to consider. So when you look at this slide that I have put together up on the screen here, this is a sampling of what could be some diverse books. I tried to find books that were published in like the last year or two. So I did want you to leave with some titles today that you could be like, ooh, I want to check out that book. There are some older books on here as well. So you kind of get a sampling, and I'm not somebody who's going to read off my slides. If you do need me to for site reasons or a diversity reason, please tell me and I will read. If you can just put that in the chat box, but otherwise I'm not going to really be reading content to you. So these are some considerations that we can look at when we think about diversity. These are all diverse books. If we go on to the next slide, I really liked this definition from author Jewel Parker Rhodes, especially when we're thinking about children's literature. So the definition of diversity as that celebration, as that deepest sense of empathy and humanity, and all the things that that kind of encompasses and includes. And when we're talking about that, oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. When we're talking about that with books and selecting titles and why it's important in the classroom and in schools, not just wanting children to see themselves, which we do want, and that is a hugely important part, but also building that empathy for others. And what better way to do that than through literature? And so some of these in the word cloud there are all different things that could fall under that umbrella of diversity. And you may have other things that you think of as well. So, you know, in income, I want to highlight income as diversity. I think sometimes we pick books that reflect kids of a certain income bracket that might not actually be the income that we're teaching to. And that disparity that can come up when you're reading a book that is like upper middle class, like all the characters are upper middle class or they have these privileges and you're not part of that class. And it kind of creates this like, is something wrong with me? Or it can create that. So all of these things that we can consider when we're looking at books. I'm going to go back to my last slide, and I want to ask if anybody can tell what is missing from this slide when we're talking about diversity. And it's not all encompassing, but there's one big major thing on here that I want to see if anybody spotted. And again, you could put that in the chat or you could unmute. Neurodivergence is not, although there is autism on a book that represents autism on this slide, but there's not like synesthesia or other things like that. But there's one big one. And does anybody else have a guess what is missing from this slide? Religion is missing from this slide. So yes, that is very true. That is one that's missing. The one big one that's missing from this slide is all the characters in these books are female. So when that leads me into my next slide, which is talking about bias. So we all have our own bias. And when you start to think about diversity and inclusion and these titles for your classroom, starting with your own bias is a great place to start. So my own bias, I gravitate towards books with female characters. And as I was putting this presentation together, I put that slide together and then looked at it again and went, oh, I picked books that have like, I got like 3 or 4 titles in and I was like, oh, I'm picking books that all have female characters. And I was like, I can work with that. So when you're doing this, recognizing like what you tend to gravitate to or how you define diversity or what it looks like to you, and then you're able to identify and stop yourself and go, okay, what do I need to fill in? So the other thing when you're looking at diverse books that I've noticed is that it does gear very female, which is funny because when you look mainstream, it gears very white male. There was an article in the that was published just this like last week or two talking about how there's this like really great percentage of white male characters in books and everybody else kind of comes in the minority. But when you're looking at the minority and those diverse books, females tend to take center stage, which is great and I love it, but that's not our total audience, right? So kind of checking yourself and be like, okay, do I have something that hits all these things? The other thing I wanted to talk about next is own voices. So if you're familiar with Own Voices, it's a term that was coined by We Need Diverse Books a few years ago. And the way I always interpreted Own Voices was the sense of like, diversity is great. If we can hear from a person who represents that particular diversity, that's even better. So, you know, it's great if if like the main character is like Hispanic, but if it's written by somebody who's white, like maybe we could find one that the main character is Hispanic and the author is also Hispanic. We Need Diverse Voices just retired the hashtag Own Voices. They just said, we're done with this hashtag. And the reason they gave for that was that Own Voice, their goal is to promote diverse books, which are very diverse. And then they created like this one hashtag that's supposed to represent all of them. And they're like, we're kind of defeating our own purpose here. So they're moving more towards hashtags that really reflect the book that it's describing. So if it's a, like Unstuck here is about a boy who stutters. So the hashtag might be like children stuttering, children's lit, or whatever it might be. So I think that that's a really great move for those of us who are looking for very specific books. When we're like, hey, I really am looking for a book that does this. Now, hopefully there's going to be those tags and those ways of searching for those very particular things. Or, you know, Black Lives Matter, like we're going to do that hashtag and we can like pull all those books up. I still like Own Voices in the way I was interpreting it, which is we want the authors to also be as diverse as their books, but just know that that hashtag is going away and it is changing. If you are new to diversity in books and you're like, I don't even know where to start, my suggestion on getting started, you can read reviews, you can ask a librarian, rather whether at your public library or in your school library, you can go in and say, hey, I'm trying to get more of this. Can you help me with that? And we are happy to do that. There's also a lot of awards out there that really focus in on some of these things that you can find on ALA's website. And I'm going to have the link to that at the end. So if you're like, hey, I'm doing great on this, this, and this, but I just realized that I'm not doing anything for LGBT, there's a whole Stonewall Award that highlights those books. So you can you can start there with awards and asking a librarian. And I like reading reviews too, because sometimes you look at a cover or you look at the topic and you're like, yeah, it's a diverse book. And then you read some reviews and they're like, this is very stereotypical, and like there's a particular teen book out there, and I'm not going to say who I think it is, because then I crisscross these two authors, but it's really lauded because it has like multiracial characters and it has Black characters, and I read it and I was like, this is a really great character in terms of racial diversity. This is a really harmful book in terms of disability and chronic diseases, because it was like the magical ending. Like the girl was told her whole life that she had this chronic illness that was going to kill her, and it turns out her mom was just really abusive and she didn't have this disease at all. Well, when reading the reviews, and even when I read it, all the reviews were like, I have a chronic disease and I actually have this, and to her just have this magical thing and it wasn't actually a problem was like really sad and hurtful for me. So reading those reviews is really important, especially because we can't all read every single book and kind of gauge those for ourselves. And also don't just go off of it's popular, because there's lots of things that become popular that are still very harmful or hurtful. Knowing your audience. Again, this is for people who are just starting out. Like you realize that you want to get more diverse in what you're offering, but you don't know where to start. Starting with the kids that you see in your classroom, starting with the kids you know in your classroom. If you say, you know, I know I have a child in my classroom who has LGBT parents, that's a great place to start. I would caution that that's not a place to end. And I would also caution against saying, well, all my kids are mainstream, like I don't need to do that. And I give a personal example for that. So I'm very white. I'm a white woman, and my children are little white boys. And so if you just looked at their faces, you might say, well, I don't need to do anything for them. But what you can't see looking at their faces is that they have a Vietnamese grandmother, that they have a Navajo uncle, that they have a Jewish grandfather. And so we also need to like step back from the face that's in front of us and from making assumptions based on that face. And we don't know what background those kids may come. We may know some, and if you're engaging with your classrooms, you may learn some of that, but there's always going to be those invisibilities. And also that diversity, it does encompass those invisible things that don't show on our skin. So going back to that place of like, race is a great place to start, but it's not all encompassing. And as was pointed out in the chat, also like religion, I'm glad that came up with the example of like my son having a Jewish grandfather. He may not see that reflected in the books, or he may be familiar with Passover and everybody's like reading Christmas books. So just keeping those things in mind. So the next thing I wanted to go on to is what I'm calling read this, not that. So swapping out titles that we may really love and hold on to for something that may be a little bit more diverse and building that empathy. So, and before I talk too much about these samples, I also want to say, as adults, I think sometimes we start to feel attacked when it's books that we read and loved as children. So, I read The Indian in the Cupboard as a child. I absolutely loved it. I read a lot of Lynn Reed Banks. I absolutely loved her. And I go back and read her as an adult and read Indian in the Cupboard as an adult, and I'm a little like, oh my gosh. I can still love it. We as adults have permission to still love the books that we read as children and that are classics that were classics for us. We also get the opportunity and the choice to not pass them along. And I think that's where this really like comes in, and where this really becomes a point. I read it, I loved it, but do I need to pass it on? Maybe not. The world has changed. There's a whole lot else going on, and there are so many choices now. So when we're looking at Indian in the Cupboard, Stone River Crossing by Tim Tingle covers that. If you're looking for like the Native American aspect, it's a much better approach to the Native American and the various cultures. If you're looking for that like magical realism and that like magical like problem solving, Dragons in a Bag by Zena Elliott is a fabulous switch out there. Little House on the Prairie is also another one that gets taught a lot, gets added to a lot of curriculums. We love it. We feel very personally attached to it. It is unfortunately very problematic and has come under a lot of criticism. So again, we need to ask ourselves, I loved it as a child, but do I need to pass it on? And Prairie Lotus by Linda Sue Park, again, is a great substitute. Talking about that time period, but through a bit of a more understanding lens. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is the one on here that I think some people might be like, why do you have that on there? Like, I didn't know that was a problem. Like, that's not what I've heard criticized. And you may or may not have. It is out there under some criticism. The reason that it's on here is for a couple of reasons. So one is, if you read the other books in the series do become very problematic. There is racism, there is sexism, there is problematic, a lot of stuff. And with series, if you do introduce kids to a book in the series and they love it, odds are they are going to go on and read other books in the series. So we do have a responsibility there. The other reason I have it on here is both that income consideration and just looking at our collections and asking yourself, how homogenized is this? And if I have an opportunity to take out a book that doesn't check any boxes on diversity, and I have an opportunity to sub one in that does, Like, let's take that opportunity and not sacrifice quality. I also want to emphasize that as well, because I know sometimes we get in this debate of like, well, this is time tested, like it's been around forever and we all agree for years that this is a fabulous book. But Linda Sue Park is a Newbery medalist who has won awards for her past books. The Girl Who Drank the Moon is a Newbery Medal winner. Again, there are some fabulous books out there that are winning awards, that are getting some great starred reviews, that sub in really well for some of these more problematic older books. So the other thing that I just wanted to touch on really briefly when we're thinking about diversity is also with mythology. So I know that mythology often enters into curriculums and enters into what we teach in schools. And a lot of the time we go to like the Greek and the Roman myths, right? Or like maybe we touch on Egyptian, or maybe the Norse comes in there a little bit. So just a reminder that we do have a whole world of mythology and folk tales and legends, and it's just such a rich, broad spectrum to draw from, that, you know, that's another place where you can kind of consider subbing out and saying like, maybe I don't need to go to the Greek and Roman this year, like maybe I could maybe we could go somewhere else. And I know that a lot of these things may be, you only have so much control in your own school. And I am talking everywhere from like what is taught in curriculum to what you recommend to a child outside of the classroom. And I know that you have limited say over what's on the curriculum, but I would also encourage you, if you're in a position at all, to be an advocate and to be going to your principals and to be going to those decision makers and saying, this is why this is important. Can we make a change? What do we need to do to make a change within those confines of standard core and standardized testing, and seeing kind of what wiggle room. And sometimes change doesn't happen overnight. Change never happens overnight. Let me rephrase that. But it won't happen at all without somebody coming in and being the first person to say, hey, you know, we could be doing this differently. And why don't we talk about what that could look like? So I want to leave you with a few resources. So again, depending on where you are, whether you're a beginner to this or whether this is old hat, I really like Lee and Low. Lee and Low is a publisher that kind of really specializes in more diversity, and they have a great catalog, even if you're just looking through it for some ideas for recommendations or references. The concept that I talked about loving books but not passing them on comes from this article from Book Riot. So if you want to read more about that, that's a great article. I've actually been really surprised by Book Riot. They have some really good content on there and some good lists. Not all of it is great, of course, but it can be a good start. The book awards that I referenced is on here. If you want to read more about Own Voices Going Away, that is also a link to that article. And I can have Tina share this out afterwards. So that wraps up my part of this presentation. I know that I was only able to give you a snapshot. If you want to talk more about diverse voices or diverse books offline, I am always up for that. I love talking about it. You can contact me, reach out with questions, or even if you just want to chat and be like, I love diverse books too, I would be happy to talk. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Nissa. That was wonderful. You're getting accolades in the chat as well. Thank you for joining us today. Okay, so we have 30 minutes, and this is where if we had a large group, we were going to break into breakout rooms and have our discussions there. But I think we're a small enough group that we should probably just stay here together. So what I'm going to have happen at this point, let me share my screen for just a minute, and we'll discuss what's going to happen next. And then we'll end the recording and start doing our workshop part of this training. So let me share real quick here. And this is going to seem a little silly, I admit that. So as I've been doing some research on best practices in collaboration, it's one of the ISTE standards that's used in education. And so it won't surprise you that there are rubrics and charts and things like that for collaboration in the classroom. And so I'd like to use these rules for the discussion that we're going to be having next. First, we have this poster that's a free offering at Teachers Pay Teachers. The link is on the slide if you really love it and need it in your classroom. And it just has simple things that all of us have no problem doing, I'm sure. So always look at the speaker, listen carefully to the speaker, respect the speaker by not interrupting, and repeat others' ideas to check understanding. So just kind of a little reminder that that's what a discussion looks like when it's being done correctly. And then for those who are like, oh, that is so children's librarian, I also found a rubric that was for the University of New Orleans undergraduate program. And so if you want a more expansive list of what collaboration looks like, how when you're collaborating, you can make decisions or build consensus, those kinds of things, that link is also there. Okay, so I will stop sharing my screen. And Heather, if you would go ahead and end the recording, please.